everyone so quiet? Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Allah to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us, and the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our Master after the Prophet, the Commander of the Faithful, the Prince of the Believers, the Protector of the Prophet and his message, Al-Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah we would have nothing. Assalamu alaikum, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dr. Yusuf, thanks for the water. Al-Bak. Now I gotta say, I keep on getting asked about this lecture. Up until today, Hajj, what are you gonna talk about? So you'll find out. For those of you who are online, brace yourselves. Hold on to your spouse. If you don't have one, then this is what we're gonna talk about. And for all of you here, I hope that you guys don't run away after this lecture. Inshallah, I hope, I pray. But this is something that truly, I'll tell you, throughout the year, we see so many questions, so many problems, so many challenges, so many opportunities. Not just in the local community here in Dearborn, Michigan, but I would say communities across the country, across the United States, and across the world. Marriage is that subject that is on everyone's mind, for those who are unmarried and for those who are married, of how to go about it, what I need to do, how I need to be. And at the same time, so many people feel like it's just not working. I'm going to give you a small example of something that I seen recently that really triggered in my mind something. I was like, in Shahr Ramadan, I need to bring this up some way, somehow. I was speaking in a community, and in one particular session that I had, there was about 200 people in the audience. And I would say 95% of the people in the audience were under the age of 30. And I did a quick poll. Who here is not married? Actually, you know what? Let's do a quick poll here. Who here is not married? Okay. And then I said, who here thinks marriage is important? Let's do it real quick. Okay. Who here wants to get married? There was a little bit more hesitation when it came to that, right? When we're addressing the subject, we have to realize the maturity and the responsibility that comes with this subject. We have to try to put culture on the side, preconceived notions on the side, what we would perceive as other people's perceptions of us on the side. Let's jump right in. When we ask ourselves, am I ready for the marriage that I'm praying for? I have to ask myself a question that is even more fundamental. Am I delaying what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is encouraging? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, I said, put culture aside. Put other people's perceptions aside. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us about marriage? How am I educated in my mind, in my heart, in my being? How do I view marriage? Do I view it through the lens that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designed for me, has given me, has structured for me? Or do I see it through every other lens? Be it what I've seen from my family, from my relatives, from what I see from movies and culture, what I see in social media. What is giving me the frame of reference, the lens by which I see marriage? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah An-Nur, chapter 24, verse 32. He says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَأَنْكِحُوا الْأَيَامَ مِنْكُمْ. Marry the single amongst you. Then later in the verse, إِنْ يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء يُغْنِيهِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. If they are poor, Allah will enrich them from His bounty. This is one of the first things that I wanted to deconstruct here tonight. Especially in communities, again, for us here locally in Dearborn, Michigan, or those watching online from across the country and across the world, when you're looking and approaching marriage, how are you approaching it? Many of us think of, am I ready for marriage? Whether it's the young man, it's the young woman. Am I ready? Usually there's an association of some form of financial stability when it comes to that. And this, by the way, this may be a little controversial for some. Like, oh, are you going to be encouraging here tonight for people that are not financially stable to get married? I don't know. What is God encouraging? Marry the single amongst you. And if they are poor, God will enrich them from His bounty. This is one of the things that building over the past 6 nights, we've been building towards what? We're talking about whether you're getting financial material success, you're getting spiritual success, you're making some movement in your life. We're talking about what's the foundation that's going to help you. That's what we've been talking about the past couple nights. Getting towards what? When I am assuming now the responsibility of taking someone into marriage and marrying someone else and building a family, because you don't start building a family with kids. You start building a family with your spouse. That's where the family begins. And I tell you, my dear brothers and sisters, we have people a lot of times, and this is just a quick reminder for the young men and women in the audience here. I would encourage you to the greatest extent, when you're thinking about your family, you think about the first member of your family that you're building is your spouse. It's not the first child. Because you may be tested with something that many people go through, which is not having children. But you still have a family when you get married. That's key. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, encouraging us, commanding us, telling us marriage is not an accessory to your life. Marriage is not something that I post about. It's a lifestyle milestone or accessory that I'm going to talk to my friends about. It's serious. It's grounded. It's part of the moral structure of society. If you look at many of the challenges and the problems that people face today, it is because a lack of marriage or a lack of substantive commitment to marriage. Some people these days are getting married, but then give up so quickly, not realizing that it's not the marriage itself and the wedding that makes up this union between two people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in another verse of the Holy Quran that I'm going to cover here tonight. But it's that commitment in that relationship, in the highs and the lows. Today, unfortunately, because of a lack of understanding of what marriage really is, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed for us, we see more and more people delaying it. Delaying it, I would say, almost endlessly. You know why and you know how? This is contributing in a magnanimous way. Scrolling, comparing, waiting, filtering, swiping, over and over and over and over again, as if there's so many options in the world. And it's causing, maybe some of us not realizing it, a hesitation towards even the idea of commitment. Not even commitment itself, the idea of a commitment. We have to realize here, marriage, and approaching it, marriage is not a product. It's not something you purchase. It's not something with specs. It's not an idea. Marriage is a covenant. So keep that in mind. What does dua makarim al-akhlaq? Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, we've taken excerpts from this dua that the Imam is teaching us every single night in our betterment of self and our trying to attain this best self. What does the Imam tell us? Before asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for elevation, the Imam alayhi salam asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for purification. And this is key when we approach the subject of marriage. Again, I'm talking about the subject, the idea of marriage before I even get to your spouse or your potential spouse. The Imam asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَأَصْلِحْ لِي نِيَّتِي, purify, rectify my intention. And then he asks him, وَاسْتَعْمِلْنِي بِمَا تَسْأَلُنِي غَدًا عَنْ, and then use me in which you will question me, in that which you will question me about tomorrow. What is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala going to ask us about tomorrow? Who here has heard that marriage is half of religion, half of your deen? Okay. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us about our deen, and we have this tradition from Ahlul Bayt, from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that marriage is half of it, don't you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us about this half? Oh, لا, that's one half. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us about all of it. Marriage is one of those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to question us about. How did we treat our spouse? Did we control our anger? How did we protect their dignity? How did we fulfill their rights? You're not just praying for a spouse when it comes to marriage. You're not just praying for a spouse. You're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to entrust you with someone's life, with someone's heart, with someone's soul. And mind you, when we're talking about this, some people are immediately thinking it's the man's responsibility to protect the heart and soul of a woman. It's also the responsibility of a woman to protect her man. It goes both ways. Marriage is mutual. Marriage is not just about one person providing for another. It's not just one being active and one being passive. And this is perhaps one of the biggest downfalls for marriage today, is the lack of understanding of what each person provides and gives in a marriage, in a relationship. To allow each person to thrive in that marriage, each person has to be ready for the responsibility that comes. This person is now your spouse. You have to approach marriage with that idea. And our young men and women need to be thinking about marriage. Some people say, no, don't think about marriage until you finish your degree. Why? Lesh. Why not think about marriage until we finish our degrees? Why? So that we stay distracted during our degrees? So that we can have dating during our degrees? So that we can have boyfriends and girlfriends during our degrees? Or so that we can be in talking phases during our degrees? A vague, ambiguous cloud of nothingness that causes more problems. Why? Don't get married until you finish your degree. No, I say, get married as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded us to get married. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides the instruction. Now, if we're afraid of what? We're afraid that yes, some of our young men and women will not have enough to provide. Okay, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the same verse in Surah An-Nur? If you fear that they are poor, Allah will enrich them from His bounty. What more do you want? But I tell you, unless you approach marriage with this mindset, you're going to trip up. Because so many people will then have other considerations in their mind when they're approaching marriage, and a lot of superficial and shallow things will become their priorities, and that will often be the cause for the marriage breaking apart before it actually even launches and starts. I want to ask you all a question here tonight, and let's be honest with ourselves. Truly, and I don't need a raising of hands or not. Just think to yourself right now. Have we turned marriage into a fairy tale, into a fantasy, into maybe a rom-com, a romantic comedy? Well, what have we turned marriage into? As in what we want our marriages to be. I'm not telling you about your marriage. Your marriage may be far from a rom-com. It may be a tragedy. I don't know. But But what have we made into, yes, this is what we want marriage to look like? Is it a fantasy? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us about the reality? Because everything that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is real. Everything from Him is the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Rum, chapter 30, verse 21. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. That you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created from us what? Pairs, our spouses. And He made you find tranquility in them, peace in them. And He placed between you affection and mercy. Sakina, mawadda, rahmah. Notice what's missing here. What's missing? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ma qal fi, right here, excitement, wala adrenaline, wala infatuation, wala fantasy perfection, wala fairy tale. He didn't say any of that. Al-sakina, mawadda, rahmah. He placed amongst you peace, love, affection, mercy. That's what He placed. Nahna, unfortunately, nowadays, we're taking what we're receiving from movies and sitcoms and shows and reels and people's posting, and it's filtering for us our expectations of what we see. And instead of these things, these real things, which is what we need peace, we need love, we need affection, we need tranquility, we need mercy, compassion. I may be having a bad day, I'm not in the best mood. Can you be a little compassionate to that? Can I be a little bit compassionate to you? Versus, nahna, what are we looking for? Instead, we're replacing these things with what? We're looking for chemistry. We're looking for a spark. We're looking for the stars to align. Okay, which rom-com? Which one? Which movie did you watch that made all of that become your expectation? Love, my dear brothers and sisters, which the best love you feel and the best love that you receive and the best love that you're going to see is the love of God, which you can experience through your spouse. That love is not lightning. That love comes through labor. It takes work. نحن بنيجي بنصلي كم ركعة بشهر رمضان, we feel a little bit of spirituality. Oh, I cried a little bit. Oh, good feeling. بعدين بتخلص شهر رمضان, and then you're like, man, I miss that feeling. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that. He gifted that to you. But He gifted that to you not with the expectation that I'm praying to receive that feeling. You're praying because the prayer itself is what you need. The labor itself, the commitment, the discipline, the action itself is what you need. When I am married, when we are married to our spouses, it's that love, it's that discipline of being committed that gets us the tranquility, the rahmah, the mercy, the compassion, the peace, the love that we're yearning for and that we need. Now, some people think they are going to fall in love and get married. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Instead, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us you get married, you commit, and your love deepens. How can I marry somebody that I don't love? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no prescription for you whatsoever into saying, go fall in love, which, by the way, usually starts off with you tripping up, exposing yourself, experimenting with yourself, young man, young woman, experimenting with yourself, putting yourself in the most vulnerable situations so that you can test and see if the other person is infatuated enough with you to go further to the next step. What the next step is, we don't know. And we see this dating culture, which is an abuse of a person's dignity, an abuse of a person's sanctity, an abuse of a person's personhood, that you allow yourself to be vulnerable for the idea of falling in love. Falling in what? Falling in love, falling in haram. That's more like it. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, the single amongst you, marry them. Don't wait until you find that job. Don't wait until you have a house with 4 bedrooms, Colonial and Dearborn Heights, right? Don't wait until that. Allah's saying, marry the single amongst you, and if you fear, because they are poor, Allah will enrich them through His bounty. What did Imam Ali alayhi salam and Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam tell us? What did they teach us from their actions? And yesterday, I gave us some foreshadowing. I mentioned very briefly how Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he married Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, what did he own? Imam Ali alayhi salam had his sword and his armor. Bas. That's it. The Prophet says, you need your sword. Keep your sword. Ya Ali, go sell your armor. And that will be the mahr of Fatima. There was a period of time, my dear brothers and sisters, listen carefully. Sma'u. Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, wal Imam Ali alayhi salam, there is no better couple than these two. Who here loves Imam Ali? Who here loves Sayyidah Fatima? ما في أحسن منهم. أنا مش أحسن منهم ولا أنت أحسن منهم. None of us are better than them. But if you saw the living situation that they were in, you saw their house, their pillows were pillows of leaves. You want to learn about the life of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam? Go read Fatima, the Flower of Life. Go read Ali, the Elixir of Love. Go read any of the books that we have out there about Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, the progeny by Sayyidina Ali al-Hakim. I remember when I was doing my research and I was writing about the life of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, I cried. Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, when she moved into her house, how many of you know family members or relatives that when they got married, their wedding, they furnished the whole house, right? They furnished the whole house, right? You hear of that, okay? You furnished the whole house. You know what they furnished their house with? A small little cot to sleep on, pillows that were filled with leaves, some pottery, some cups, some bowls. That's it. 4 walls. If you and I came and walked into the house of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Sayyidah Zahra, you wouldn't know how to act. You think, what is this? How could they get married? And by the way, it's not because it was back then. La, it wasn't because it was back then. Back then, people promised those suitors that came for Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, they promised Rasulullah saying, we will give you valleys of gold and silver as the mahr for Fatima. Rasulullah told them, leave. We're not looking for gold and silver. This is the difference. When it comes to marriage, Imam Ali alayhi salam was young, in his 20s. Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam was young. They were young. They were not of means. They didn't have all the money in the world. And they were promised, Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, all the different kinds of mahr that you can think of. She was promised. No, thank you. She's not interested. And Rasulullah as her father, so us as fathers here, not interested. Interested in what? The faith. Is he a mu'min? Is he a believer? Does he have character? We're not looking for currency. We're looking for character. For the men and for the women. That was the measure. And to this day, I will tell you, principles don't change. Circumstances may change, but principles don't change. These principles are everlasting. So what's our problem? What's our problem? And let's ask ourselves, and please, let's continue to be honest. I don't need another show of hands. This is just for you. Take this, internalize this. Has social media corrupted our commitment? I'm seeing some nodding. Has social media corrupted our commitment? Social media, remember the other night I asked you, is your phone training you more than your salah? Let's be honest. نحن بالصلاة يعني we fly through the ركعات. يعني صلاة الفجر, it won't take more than a minute and a half, if that. But once we start scrolling, oh my God, 2 hours pass by. Oh, what happened? I gotta go to sleep now. Right? Don't raise your hands. It's okay. When you look at social media, social media, unfortunately, whether it's on any of the platforms where we're engaging with other people, right? Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, anything where you're seeing other people. We're constantly seeing, and even if it may not be straight in your face or you may not be saying it, what social media is producing for us as a psychological result is what? There's always someone better. There's always another option. Especially nowadays, you can connect with people from across the world. You get messages from people from across the world on different continents. And they may be of the same faith of you. Okay? There's always going to be someone better, somebody more attractive, somebody more successful, somebody more compatible, somebody more impressive, somebody wealthier, someone more good looking, someone more attractive. That's always going to be there. This infinite scroll psychology has numbed us to the ability to actually commit. For those of you who have not yet been married, or for those of you who are looking to get remarried, there's no shame in it. Khalin, let's be honest with ourselves. There's no shame in it. Marriage is a sunnah, is a tradition of Ahlul Bayt, of the Prophet, of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for a person to yearn in getting married, that's excellent. That's good. You should want to get married. But when we're getting married, on what basis are we trying to get married? Men and women alike. On what basis? Is it on the basis that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is providing for us? Or are we numbing ourselves with this infinite scroll psychology so that I don't ever make a choice. I don't ever make a decision. I'm so scared to make a commitment because of what could be. Well, I could do this. I should do this. Maybe this way, maybe that way. No. Marriage in itself is the opposite of that, is the contradiction of that. Marriage requires finite choice. You have to choose when it comes to marriage. And by the way, when you choose, you continue. You have to choose and you have to continue. You choose, you commit, and you build. That's part of the equation. So when we're looking at all of this, and we see there may still be some fear, still may be some hesitation, there still may be something that's holding you back. Ask yourself why. And ask yourself, is this fear and this hesitation, is it coming from something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided for you or something else? Is this fear and hesitation, is it coming from something that has been influencing you outside of the domain of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed? Or something else? What's the fear and hesitation connected to? Who here is married? Who here is married? For those who are married, whether you just got married, you just got engaged, it's been a few months, it's been a few years, whatever it may be. When you are married, know that now the work has begun. A lot of people, by the way, they build up towards like, I want to get married. And then they get married and khalas, okay, I did the right thing. I akmalt nus ad-din. I completed half my religion and now I'm done. No, bil'aks. Marriage itself, once you get to that point where now you're in the marital commitment to that person, that itself is not the final destination. In that commitment of marriage, there's a responsibility. And I want to share with you a hadith that we have in our tradition that will show you how deep of a connection it is in how you are in your marriage to how you are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In a previous night, we mentioned the verse from chapter 49, verse 13. The end of the verse, or towards the end of the verse, it says, "Inna akramakum 'inda Allah atqakum." The noblest amongst you, the best amongst you, with Allah in the eyes of God, is the most pious, the most God-aware, the most God-conscious. There's a hadith that's narrated by Shaykh al-Saduq in his famous book, one of the 4 primary sources of hadith that we have, "Man la yahdharuhu al-faqih." And this is a narration that goes back all the way in its chain to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa alihi. The Holy Prophet ﷺ says, خيركم لأهله وأنا خيركم لأهلي. The best amongst you is the best to his family, and I'm the best to my family. I am the best among you to my family. Take a moment to reflect on that. And this applies to all of us, men and women alike. How do you treat your spouse? How do you treat your family? How do you take care of your family? This is what we're building towards. This itself is something that's so powerful. And notice that the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he doesn't say the best, khayrukum, the best amongst you is the most knowledgeable, the most visible, the most public in worship, the most giving. He doesn't say any of these virtues. These are all virtues. But he says the best amongst you is the best to your family. Your real rank with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is decided at home. Now I'm sharing this, the majority of the audience here, and probably the majority of the people listening online, are not married. When you're looking at this, don't start thinking about these traditions and these parts of the instructions from Ahlul Bayt and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once you get married. You should be designing your life with this in mind. Don't wait until you get married to start thinking about this part and only take the first half of what I was saying. I want to get married to somebody who I know is going to help design a family, a home like this together. And that we're going to be able to grow together. When I'm looking at my standards, and something that I just mentioned, we're going to look to grow together, build together. But many of us, my dear brothers and sisters, we don't have those kind of standards. Or if we have those kind of standards, they're astronomical standards and they're not realistic. I can have standards. You should have standards. And your standards should be high. I'm not telling you to ever lower your standards. Religion doesn't tell you to lower your standards. But religion tells you what kind of expectations are you going to have of others and yourself. If I have standards, are these standards protecting me? Which often people put up standards, put up guards, almost as safety valves to protect ourselves, or are they hiding us? Many people have long lists. Income, they should be making this amount of money. Education, they should have this many degrees. Status, they should be looked at and respected in this way in society. Personality, they need to be fun, they need to be outgoing, they need to be this, and that, right? Mr. Charming. We need all of it, right? Okay. And these are just a few of them. I remember I was sitting down with a classmate of mine at that time when I was in university, and she said, Jalal, I have a question. I was like, well, okay, what's up? She's like, I don't think I'm ever going to get married. I was like, oh, khair, why? She's like, because the guys out there, and this is what, in the university, right? So she's about 20 years old. So the guys out there, they're not good enough. I thought, wow, khair, why aren't they good enough? And I'm like, I'm taking an offense to myself. I'm like, okay. Why aren't they good enough? Well, because when I get married, I want to make sure that my husband is going to make more money than me. I'm like, okay. Well, it depends on what you're planning on making. If you're making nothing, that's pretty easy, right? But if you're making a lot, what are you planning on making? What are you studying? Wait a second, what are you studying? Pre-med. Okay, so what do you want to be? I want to be a neurosurgeon. I said, oh, well, yeah, that's tough. I said, so wait a second. If there is a young man who comes and asks for your hand, he has all of the traits, all of the qualities that you and your family would want in a young man. He's religious, he's good looking, he's respected, comes from a good family. But let's say he's a civil engineer, okay? Good job, security, good insurance, but not a neurosurgeon. She said, nope, can't. You see the problem in that, right? Okay, you've identified a problem for yourself and I'm not going to solve it because you don't want it to be solved. Right? And we can be very particular. Now, I didn't delve too deep into that because there's underlying things for that. But we can be very particular when it comes to a person's looks, when it comes to a person's where they come from, their family, where their family is originally from, their nationality, their ethnicity. We can be very particular and create problems regarding these things, create barriers for ourselves. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't talk about any of this stuff. He says, marry the single amongst you. And if you have a concern regarding them, if they're poor, Allah will enrich them. No worries. Let me ask you something uncomfortable and bring it back home to you. If someone applied your standards, think of all the standards that you have in your mind. I need all these things. If someone applied your standards to you, would you qualify? Oh, that's a little tough, huh? By the way, just so you keep in mind, you're having these standards. Remember, when you're getting married, you're not shopping for a laptop. You're not shopping for your next car. You're not looking at specs and comparing. Allah ysamhak, or Allah ysamhak if you are. Why? You're marrying a person. You're not marrying an idea or a product. You're marrying a human being. And if you're going to approach marriage like this, marriage will approach you the same way. Because you may end up getting married, and then once the person who you married, because you approached it with that kind of intention, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends you somebody that's going to nitpick on every single thing that you are. I married you on the basis that انت عندك 1 2 3. Yeah, 1 2 3. What do you got? This is not the right intention for me to be approaching marriage with. If you have all of these standards and we apply them to yourself, would you qualify? We want somebody who's patient. Nahna, are we patient? We want somebody who's emotionally intelligent. Nahna, do we know how to discipline ourselves in our anger? Are we disciplined? Nahna, we want somebody who is spiritually grounded, somebody who's religious, spiritual. Do we even pray consistently? Marriage will not fix what you refuse to grow. Marriage will only expose it. A question that I want to ask here tonight, and inshallah we'll wrap up and end. Here, when it comes to especially the young brothers and sisters in the audience, and by young I mean anyone under the age of 70. Said that the other night. Want to see if I get a better response. No? Good? Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Have we delayed adulthood? I see brothers and sisters that are, and by the way, age is just a number, truly. But I'm just giving you an idea. Previously, in previous generations, people generally got married a lot younger. Previously, people got married a lot younger. Now, you see more and more of a delay when it comes to marriage. Now, someone may be looking and be like, oh, the people that got married younger back then is because they were naive. They didn't know any better. I would disagree. Instead, I would say that most of the time people were getting married when they were younger is because they understood, and the culture understood, that growth happens inside marriage, inside responsibility, not after it. As in, I have to grow, get to a certain milestone in my life, and now I'm ready to be married. You will never be ready for marriage. خدوها مني. You will not be ready to be married. You will not be ready for marriage. You will not be ready for children. I remember with both of my kids, both Zahra and Ali. You ready, Jalal? And I'm like, yeah, pumped. As soon as I turn away, I'm not ready. Not at all. I was 25, 26 when my daughter Zahra was born. I was 28 when my son Ali was born. Both the times I wasn't ready. I'm still not ready. I look at my kids today and sometimes I look like, Wow, subhanallah. Don't fool yourself into thinking that you're going to take care of everything. Once you hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything gets cleared up. But don't think that you're the man, that you're the woman, that you're going to take care of everything. It doesn't work like that. If you do, you're going to fall flat on your face. Instead, we see today, instead of this mindset, which was one that was a culture of encouraging young people to get married, generally, we see today, we want perfect savings. We want perfect career. We want perfect stability. We want perfect certainty. You need to tell me where you're going to be in the next 10 years. Allahu Akbar, I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. Now, by the way, just to share with you, and personally, I'll tell you, I got married very young. One of the best things that I had as an asset was I had a plan. I had a projection. But I never had certainty. And my plan wasn't perfect. And I didn't have a clear image of the future, but I tried. And that compensated for other things. So the young men in the audience, the young ladies in the audience, yes, have a plan. But don't expect that you're going to have perfect certainty. And the expectations that we have as a society, as a community of one another, shouldn't be of this perfection. And then we get to marriage. Perfect, 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 and then we get to marriage. And by the way, if anyone is projecting perfection, it's a facade. If they're projecting its perfection, it's not real. Maturity doesn't come from endless freedom. Because usually what we find is people is like they want to have this freedom to work, to get their degrees, to work, to travel, to experience this and that. And then once they're about 35 years old, then they'll settle down and they'll get married. Right, Hassan? No, it's okay. He's the result of a good marriage. Instead, and by the way, I want to tell you guys, that's one of the most beautiful things that you have out of marriage. And that is something, whether Yusuf and Raneen are actually thinking about it, which I'm sure they are, is when you bring your child with you to the places that you're in from the very beginning as a baby, as an infant, it grows with them. And I'll tell you, for all of you, inshallah, when you all get married, to bring your kids wherever you go. If you want your children to grow with you, you need to bring them with you. Don't shield them from everything. Oh no, they're not ready yet. No, bring them. Bring them. And that is what enlivens a family and enlivens a community. Marriage humbles you. Marriage refines you. Marriage forces you to grow. Marriage puts reality in your face every single day. You have no choice. You can't hide in marriage. You have to face it. Marriage is what moves you away from the distractions of this life. In ending here, because I'm out of time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes to us in the Holy Quran, marry the single amongst you. It's a command, it's an encouragement, it's an empowerment, telling us as a movement, as a responsibility, that if you're building excellence, great. You're building yourself, great. But if you're hiding behind perfectionism, grow up. Let me say that one more time. If you're building excellence, great. If you have high expectations of yourself and of your future spouse, excellent. But if you're hiding behind perfectionism, please, I'm sorry, take this from me as a brother, grow up. Nobody's perfect. And even when you look at Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, who are perfect, who are immaculate, you would look at their circumstances and you'd probably say, what? I don't want to live like that. Because they had true perfection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we want to be like Ahlul Bayt, we want to follow their example, we want to follow them, then go back to them. Go back to the Holy Quran. Let's not make it where we're religious in everything, بعدين تجي لنص الدين, which is marriage, and then we treat it and approach it completely different. Oh no, he has to have 1, 2, 3, 4. من وين? What standard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, makes it where you're putting this kind of pressure on a young man or on a young woman to have these following traits? On what? But by the way, guess what? In this life, you're free. You can do whatever you want in this life, but deal with the consequences. Matruho, and you wanted to get married, and you had all of these standards, and then you realize that the person is completely different than what you expected, because you had those kinds of materialistic, shallow standards. And then you go back to the religion, you ask Allah, why God? Why did this happen to me? He gave you what you actually wanted. And don't also come back and say, oh, there's not enough good men, there's not enough good women, when they're right in front of you. I said it to the audience that I started off with in a different community. I said everybody that raised their hand, all of those single people in the audience that raised their hand that want to get married and should get married. But at the same time, and then I asked them, but who here thinks there's not enough good people out there to get married? More hands went up. I think some of the married people raised their hands. I'm like, there's a problem here. Without asking all of you to raise your hands again, I leave you with this. We should not be losing hope when the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are closer to us than we think. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance, for direction, for stability, for groundedness. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fulfill for us His instruction of having the people of our community get married and completing half of the religion, half of their faith, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, Ajalallahu ta'ala faraj al-Sharif. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal our sick, to answer our prayers, to bring us closer in unity, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our communities across the world, especially those who are oppressed and going through ongoing injustices, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, all of this. هذا والحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة والتسليم على نبينا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على صل على محمد